That didn't work out. Alright guys, today we're going to build the Simple T Copter, and I've already painted this frame and actually stole the rear boom off one of my other ones because I really like it. It's special. But some of the things we're going to need obviously are your motors, your speed controllers, your control board, and your receiver obviously. Again, I'm transplanting this off one of the other T Copters, the bigger one I had. So I've already got some of this stuff put together. Once you get your frame, you're going to want to take it apart basically, and remove everything from it, and then you're actually going to put it partially back together without the top plate on it. So we're going to take that off, and we're going to screw the front. Let me put this on my noggin here. Hold on a second. All right, hopefully you're not looking at my mouth or something here. So we're just going to take and basically screw the arms back on temporarily on both sides. Just any screws are fine. You just want them to kind of hold in place. It makes it easier to set all your electronics and all your motors up. And alright, so basically we'll hold it all together while you're doing all your stuff to make sure everything bends and works fine. Okay, so you want to go ahead and put your two-phase tape onto your arms. You want to leave a space for your actual crap, that didn't have those things on it yet. Alright, so you want to leave a space for your bearing in the middle, just because when it mushes down you don't want the bearing to get into the two-phase tape, so it kind of slows down the motor a bit. It's just kind of silly, but it does. And of course, zip ties. I need a camera crew. This is ridiculous. And the other little trick here is when you set the zip ties up, you're going to want to have them on separate sides. You don't want them both on the back side here. You want them on separate sides, because that way it'll kind of torque itself down nice and flat. And you can also, if you're concerned about it, you can double zip tie this up and it'll be a bit stronger if you need to. It's up to you. Depends on the quality of your zip ties to how much you need to actually put on there. And of course a good zip tie gun is worth its weight. It's really nice to have. So we got a motor on there already. Now I'm going to show you how to do the extension of the speed controllers, but two of the speed controllers you need to extend them longer. So basically when you put your speed controller inside, it'll make the stretch to the outside. And the other important thing is, once you get all this done, is you want a zip tie around here. I usually go to the top of the arm and run a zip tie here, and then a zip tie here to so if the motor comes popping off, then it will release from the actual holes right here, and it won't tear up your motor wires. I know I explained that a little bit before, but it's very important, because I've got a motor somewhere over here, that this one right here, which unfortunately ripped out the wires. I tried putting it all back in, but it basically broke the motor, because it pulled the wires out of the whatever you call it inside there, and made the motor so it doesn't work anymore. So I got a $20 paperweight. So again, you don't want to zip tie here, because that's bad. You want to zip tie here, so it will not rip out your motor. Hopefully it won't rip out your motor's wires on the inside. Okay, I realized I didn't actually have my bullets on the end of this motor, and I know most of you guys probably know how to do it, but I thought I'd throw a couple on there. Unfortunately, these are actually kind of ready pre-used bullets, but this is the way I do this. It may not be the correct way of doing it, but it is what it is. Basically fill it up about 3/4 of the way full and figure out where the hell the motor went. There it is. While you're keeping it hot, I've already pre-tinned these wires a little bit. Basically dunk them down in there, kind of let them settle for a second, pull it off, and when it starts cooling, you can kind of just pop it out. And that's how we put the bullets on the ends of the motors. Since I have to do that, I'll do one more. Ow, that was hot. Damn it. I'm alright. Alright, so there are little holes in the side of these bullets. You can actually heat them up with that, but I got a good little 60-watt iron here, and it's just as easy for me to do it this way. Find you another one. Let's sit down there a second, make sure the solder melts together, and then just pop it out. So that's how we do the connectors on the ends of the motor. Alright, we got our motors on. The other thing I forgot to mention is before you take your frame apart, we'll just pretend like it's still together. If you'll take a pencil and just run this around the inside and kind of draw out where your safe area is for your board to go. It's not, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this will give you an idea of where all your electronics are going to sit inside, so you know you can put your speed controllers here. I tend to put my rear speed controller here. I put my receiver, I think, here. Or no, here, my bad, that's what it's actually cut out for. And whatever else you want to put here. But either way, we'll get into that. And a little bit on painting. You can spray paint this thing, you can brush paint it. I brush painted this because I found this day glow yellow that is so obnoxious that even at night you can almost see it in any kind of moonlight. You can actually fly it. It's just unbelievable stuff. I bought it at Michael's for $2. Where the hell is it? Here it is. This is particular stuff I use. It's called Americana Neon Fluorescence. Good stuff. It's cheap. Dries real quick. You know, it's not going to win any kind of beauty pageant, but it's kind of fun when you're trying to see where it's going, that you can actually see it. So we got that all done. We're going to set the speed controllers up now, and basically it's two front ones. You can do whatever you want. You can crisscross them, you know, run them like that if you want. I tend to like to do them kind of like this, I think. Of course, with these motor wires out of the way, but I will hot glue them in place like this, and that'll give me some area here for your stupid wires you have to deal with, your power wires. It gives you a little more room to put stuff, you know, just some junk that the wires that you want to try to hide has to sit somewhere. So it's good that it has a little bit more area to sit up here. As far as wiring up the powering harness, again, that's always the biggest pain in the butt of these builds, but I've kind of got a little system, and hopefully it'll come across well in the video so you can see how we do it. But I'm going to hot glue these suckers in place now. Oh hell, let it run. I got a hot glue gun right here. So this is of course more easier to do when I'm not dealing with a camera. These are flash speed controllers. I got the chip cut out for the cutout for flashing the chip itself. You can run this with flash speed controllers or not. It's up to you. One thing, you don't want to get your speed controls too far out, because when you bend these arms back, it'll be touching up against here, and it can be an issue. But it's just kind of like a little bit of a balancing act. You get them just far enough, and you'll figure it out. If you screw up, just, you know, pop the speed control back out. They're not permanently set in with the hot glue, so you can get them back out. And so that's one. I've already got the extensions on here. I kind of saw how we did that. There we go. So they're just sticking out a little bit on the side, just a hair. If you use different speed controllers, you know, you may be shorter, maybe longer. Just depends on what you decide to use. You can use anything. You can use the Hobby King Plush. They work well. I think the mysteries work good. You know, these are relatively cheap, and if you got a flashing tool, you can flash them yourself, or I'm going to be selling some flash ones for a bit, and then we'll go from there. We got to put the back one on, and honestly I'm going to wait on the back one because I kind of want to set my boom up and do all that stuff before I get into that. But this gives us plenty of room for the wires. They'll be a little bit slack, but I kind of do this kind of quickly because I'm going on a trip, and I want to have this T Copter for my trip to fly with, do some video with it. So don't fall. Alright, we're attaching the rear motor. I've already got these pre-drilled because, again, I'm using kind of a block that I've already used in the past. In fact, it's drilled on both sides. I have absolutely no clue why, but I'm just going to use this block because I like it. It's pink, so nothing about my manlyhood. It's just I can see it. I know where the back is. So I got some real little screws that are actually under the camera. And we're going to screw that in. The other thing is important is you don't want to run your wires here. I mean, you look at it, you think, oh man, this is a place to run the wires, but your servo's right here. And then when this thing tilts, the wires get caught, and it's just really a bad idea for the wires to do it that way. So we just run it out the sides and just kind of have a little loop around. I'm going to get this screwed on. We're going to go off camera to screw on these things because you should know how to screw on a motor. Alright, we're going to be hooking up the servo in a second here. I just got to find one. But a little bit on this control arm that goes from the actual servo into the block. It's just 256 rod, threaded rod. It's threaded here and it's not threaded here. You just basically make a bend in it and you hook it to your servo and stick it in the arm block and you're good to go. This setup has a little bit of movement back and forth in it. I've never seen any effect from it, but what is nice about this, instead of putting a direct drive servo on, like an RC Explorer setup, is that, you know, when you bump it and hit it, it's got a little bit of play. You're not going to be as apt to tear up your servo using this as you are in the direct drive. I think the direct drive is brilliant. It has absolutely no slop, but slop has never been an issue for me. I've had servos that have been around for a long time and literally have a half inch to a 3/4 inch of movement on my motor, and it still flies dead perfect. So either I'm lucky or it's just not really as important as people are concerned about having a little slop in the rear boom. But I've also been really lucky with the HS82 servo, which I have right here, but this one's a brand new one and it's not cut yet. So I got some cut ones and I'm going to put one of those on here. You got to cut off the tabs. Just use a belt sander, use a knife, use whatever you need to get these little tabs off here. You have to do it in the top and bottom because obviously it won't fit on there right if you don't. So we're going to do that. Alright, I went ahead and just used this servo that I just showed you and ground off the tabs with a belt sander. Again, use whatever you want. Alright, if you have a servo tester, you can use this to center the servo, which means bring it to its center point and make it all happy. If you don't have one of these, you can hook it up to your receiver, like your aileron servo, make sure your trim tabs are perfectly centered, you know, power it up and let it center that way. Whatever it takes to get it in the center, you want to do that before you put your arm on. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to my $6 servo things, make sure it works. Yeah, nice. Center one is obviously your center. So when I put it on the actual arm, I'm going to put it on with the wire going up. And then on my case, I like to run the wire onto the right-hand side, my control rod onto the right-hand side. So you want to get that. Ooh, that's a good job, Matt. As you know, much straight up and down. It's not going to be perfect. They never are for some odd reason. And I'm using these metal servo arms, and you don't have to use these. Plastic ones are actually safer, because when you screw up, it'll probably break your plastic horn and not destroy your servo. But I'm a risk taker, and I throw all caution to the wind a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and, if I can get this stupid washer picked up, I'm going to go with the metal ones because I think they look cool, and I've got extra servos, and I just going to use it. So I got as close as possible to that. And centered it up. It's a little bit high on one side, but it's close enough. So we're going to two-face this sucker to the arm. We're going to hook up our little 256 rod. Luckily, this one's kind of already set up for, hopefully it'll be correct. We're going to get our little tape out. Put a little strip of tape. This A holds the servo in place while you zip tie it, and B gives a little buffer to it, and this looks cool. So actually it doesn't look cool, but it doesn't matter. So You're going to set the arm in place. Probably can't see this very well because I can barely see it. You're going to bring it up, over, and you want the arm to sit nice and snug into the block. And obviously this is, I'm going to have to adjust this arm a little bit. You just want to kind of bring it till it, forward and backwards so it just feels about right. Push down a little bit on it. And zip tie it. Again, doing the alternating zip ties. I don't have a professional cameraman, so you're just having to live with what I can do for you here. I'm sorry. I'm not quite that. Let me go that way. Double zip tie. The zip ties work fantastic on there. There's no need to make a fancier. I've seen people build wooden servo holders. In fact, I've seen some of the craziest stuff in the world on these yaw mechanisms. I know mine is very, very basic. I mean, you can't get any more basic than a piece of wood with a carbon fiber rod going through it. But you know what? It works. And right now I got that much play. I'm kind of shaking it back and forth. You see it's got a very minute amount. I can just grab another copter here. Already got a built one. This one's been flying for a little while. It's got, alright, well, it's got no play. Let's grab a Tricopter. Maybe it'll got a little play. Let's see what I've got here. It's got a little bit. You can see it's got a little bit more. It's just over time your gears will get a little sloppy. I've also got my new quick, since I break so many props, I got tired of trying to find a wrench, so I got some wing nuts. And actually they work and don't seem to affect anything, and I can change out a prop by hand this way. So another new original from simplecopter.com is a wing nut quick prop change application. You can get those at Home Depot. They're stainless steel. They're awesome. So back to our boom. So we got our boom put together, and we got a servo on there. It's easy peasy. Literally, to put the motors on and the boom, put all this stuff together, it's taken me about 20 minutes, and that's because I'm taking my time. It's quick, it's fast. So basically we're going to lay this boom basically about a ½ inch in front of where the screws go, and that's basically where it's going to lay. So if you have a table where you can kind of lay it out so you can leave it, that's great. I barely got enough room on this one to do it, and it's wanting to fall off the table. But we want to kind of set up our back speed controller here to find out where it needs to be. So I'm going to hook up my speed controller, and I can already see I'm going to probably have to put extensions on this, but let's just see where it lies real quick. So if it's right there, okay, well the speed controller is not going to make it. So I want to have the speed controller sitting about here. So I'm going to have to take all my hard labor, and because I'm an idiot and I forgot to put extensions on it, and I'm going to have to extend it so it can sit here, because it'll look better than being obviously sitting right there. So I'm going to put some extensions on. I'll be right back with you. Alright, we got the extension soldered up. Got my little ends on here. I'm going to position this approximately where it goes. I'm going to position this approximately where it goes, which is right there. And you have to trust me, these wires are going to work out, and they will. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and hot glue in my speed controller. Very high-tech stuff there. I'm going to let you sit here and watch me hold my finger on the speed controller just so it sets the glue right, so you can properly know how long to hold the glue. I'm just kidding with you guys. But I'm just stalling right now, figuring out what I'm going to do next. So I don't need the boom. I know it's going to fit. I'm going to throw that over there somewhere. Go away. And now we got this wonderful, wonderful cluster of wires that we have to get this and frack. This, and this all together. Can you see that? Hold on a second. These all together, and we got to get a tap to go onto the bottom of the doohickey here, so it'll start beeping at me and saying it's time to land. So how do you do that? You can cut your wires shorter and make it nice and neat, but I have this thing where I don't like to cut my wires short. I don't know why. I'd rather just kind of bundle them up in this area right here. And so I'm going to grab some wire, and I'm going to show you how I do it. You can do it whatever way you want. Just because I do something doesn't mean it's right. We believe it or not. And but I'm going to go over how I run this set of wires to get me a power plug to the full set of these wires. So let me grab some wire and I'll be right back. Alright, I've got my wire, and we're going to take I'm using 14 gauge wire for my main power. I'm not sure exactly what term I should call this, but the wire that's going to connect everything together, I'm using 14 friggin' gauge wire. Got it. You could probably get by with 16 gauge. If you ever research how much power certain gauge wires need, I'm really screwing this up. How much power a certain gauge wire can handle? You know, most of the time we're overdoing this, especially Hobby King. They got this thing where they send you a battery that can handle enough amperage to crank a diesel truck, you know, for your model airplane. So it makes it friggin' horrible to try to actually solder. But either way, we're going to go with 14 gauge just because that's what I grabbed. 16 gauge would probably be fine. We're pulling about 60 amps out of this thing total, so probably 14 gauge is really a good idea. And 60 amps, of course, is the high end of the scale, but it can take that much. So I'm going to start with soldering these two bad boys together, and that's going to be my first link in the chain. So I'm going to do that off camera. All right, I got the first one soldered on here. What I want to do is I want to bring one of these other ones on, and I'm going to say, since this one's coming out that way and coming in this way, I'm going to solder it in right about here. And the important thing is to make sure, well, it's actually not the important thing, but it's very difficult to do when I'm trying to do this on camera, but basically I'm just going to run the wire around a little bit like that, cut a groove in it, come up a little bit, cut another groove in it. I absolutely don't know what this is called, but I just call splicing the wire in. And a couple things while I'm doing this. Soldering irons. If you don't have a good soldering iron, you don't have to spend a ton of money. Hobby King has this 60 watt soldering gun for 15 bucks. You buy that gun, it costs you $15 to have it shipped from the USA. I'm not sure how much it costs to have shipped from China, but for you overseas folks. But any good, I mean, I would go the 60 watt iron if I could, because it flows the solder so quickly. And trying to do this and make it look like I'm really having no problems doing it. I actually cut this a little bit large, but you know, with the amount of heat, you just want to kind of cover the whole wire and get it good and soaked in there. By the way, I'm using some really crappy solder. I ran out of my good stuff, and I found this roll in my dad's toolbox, so it's probably about 90 years old, because he probably got it used too, knowing him. But there is actually a shelf life on solder, so this thing might suffer a horrible death. But important thing here, now we got this kind of soldered up. I got to get a little solder on the other side. I think it's already tinned up, but we're going to do it anyway. A little bit more on there obviously is a good thing. Just want to get really soak in there good. And you know, you're going to end up soldering the suckers together and go, crap, how to get the heat shrink on here. So we're going to cut a piece of heat shrink. Let's cut the big heat shrink because my soldering skills may be a little off today. We're going to slide this on. Alright, so we know we got that on there. These little helping hands are wonderful. Of course, if I can do it on camera, will be the important part. Again, it's a little easier to do this when I'm not worried about you guys seeing what I'm doing. I know it's going to fail miserably, but alright, screw the helping hands. We're just going to burn our fingers. I'm sorry, this is really hard to do at this angle, and it's going to hurt my hands like a son of a gun, but y'all don't make any ugly comments about my soldering skills, because I will delete them. Alright, this was definitely not the way I would like to solder this. I'm going to go off camera and solder it correctly, but you get the idea. We want to get this onto this line, and get that off there. Go on, get off. And I'm going to do it right where I can actually get my hands on and do it, but you get the idea. We want this to be as flush to here as possible, and with a good bead of solder on it. So, okay, it's not my best work, but it's not coming off, and that's the most important piece. I mean, if you don't have the prettiest solders in the world, that's fine, as long as you know that it ain't coming loose, because when it comes loose, it just generally is a bad thing, and it ends up, you know, crashing. So we got that one on there. So we got to do one more, and then the last one, we're going to combine this last wire, and we're going to also figure a way of yeah, that's going to sit nice. We're also going to figure a way of getting our little other end of the control board's wire. Again, this wire right here is not something you have to do, but if you do it, then the board can actually read the voltage of the pack, and you can set an alarm on it, and it's just generally a nice thing to have. So what I do is I solder on 1/2 of a BEC connector. It looks like it's about to fall apart, but either way, good old Chinese stuff. And then the other half is somewhere around here, which I believe it's right here, and I'm wrong. So I'll find the other half, and I will solder that to the wiring harness, and that'll give us a tap for the board. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, cut me another piece of heat shrink, slide it down here. I got to come out a little ways in the wire, just so I'll have room for my heat shrink on it. And then I've got to get that, and I'll probably tab in that wire, and I'll show you how I do that in a second. Alright, it's very simple to solder these two together. We're just going to use these helping hands, or whatever you call the stupid things that keep falling apart. We want to get these two together. Ow, ow. Alright, not pretty, but it'll work. And we're going to slide this through the heat shrink. And we're going to get this tabbed in here. Keep the heat shrink as far away as possible from the solder, because it will end badly when the heat shrink gets really small and you can't get it on there. We're going to hope these things stay together. You get this little point in here. Ow, hot. I'm going to put a little bit more on here just to get it all flowed in nicely. Of course, you can't see what I'm doing because my finger's in the way, but I do apologize. So the end result is we got a nice, ugly, but functional solder here. You got your speed controller hooked up, and that's my exit wire going out. We'll put the heat shrink over the top, even though it's still a bit warm. Should fit. This is 6mm heat shrink right here, and I didn't wait long enough, and it's shrunk a little bit, so there we go. So this is going to basically take this wire, and in the end result, we're going to run it through here. It's going to be bundled up into here, and it's going to exit out the side, and that's where your Dean's connector is going to hook to. So that's 1/2. So I got to do the other half, and then we'll go from there. All right, got them all done. This was the end result, and the idea again for this little space up here, so you have a space for these to kind of compress down, and when your top plate goes over, it covers it up. You don't even see it, and so we still got to put the Dean's connector or whatever connector you choose to use on the ends of these wires. And you got your little tab for your board, and so we're about ready to. I'm going to go ahead and throw the Deans on, and then I'm going to go apply the board and show you a little bit about that. On the back of these boards, it actually says aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder, and auxiliary. So you basically, match those to whatever you're going to use in this. In fact, I'll have to redo it anyway because I'm going to use a different receiver. Since this is my FPV rig, I want to go ahead and have it set up for doing long range stuff or longer range stuff. It's a pain in the butt to build the wiring harness, but the second one, when I wasn't on camera, I had this done in about 5 minutes. It's just hard for me to solder on camera. It's just difficult to actually get the angles and everything that you can see. So I'm going to go steal a receiver off another one of my birds and hook it up to here, and then we're going to put the two-face gyro type tape that is absolutely wonderful stuff, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply it to the board, so I'll be right back. All right, a little bit about these Hobby King receivers. The little Old Faithful orange one we had here is about a little bit over 11 and a half millimeters. Yep. And this new 6-channel with this really awesome wavy thing on here is a little thicker, which screwed up my friggin' world because it's too thick to it's just a slightly too thick to fit in my rails. It's a great receiver, but I'm going to have to do a little slight modification to it. And yes, much better. So, oh crap. So now let's just check it out with the micrometer here. Much better. Okay, so now the wavy thing is kind of like a sanded wavy thing. I think it's going to be much better, and it does fit down to my rails. So a little modification having to be done to this fine Hobby King new 6-channel long-range receiver, so it'll fit. And I'm going to connect up the wires. And since we got the board off, it's easier to do the board wires while it's off. The other thing in Hobby King's great, whatever you call it, they've switched the signal wire to the bottom instead of the top. So in other words, if you have them together, usually your light colored wire went up. And I'm used to that, so I set up this new one and sat there like a dumb idiot trying to figure out why it wouldn't bind and why it wouldn't work, and it never dawned on me to check for the signal wire, and the signal wire is on the bottom of these. I have no clue why they decided to do that, since they've been making these for like a year and a half, the signal wire on top, but they did, and I just want to rant a little bit because I felt like an idiot for an hour and a half while I couldn't get it to bind, couldn't get it to work, threw it out in the yard, kicked it around a little bit, and then I actually looked at it and saw that the signal wire was on the bottom. So I was kind of an idiot there, but we got to hook up the board. It's easier to hook up the board first because obviously the lettering is on here, and if we tape it down, we can't see it. So lucky for me, I've smashed a couple of boards, and like no buttons left and whatever. And so I have an extra board that I can actually look at, but you guys don't have that. I hope you don't have that ability just yet. So I'm going to hook up the wires, and then I'll go over two-face taping and how we do that. All right, before we glue in the board and the receiver, we need to bind the sucker up because it's a pain in the butt to get to the binding things at that time. So we're going to hook up the speed controllers first. Now the white wires always go to the inside on both sides here. Your front left motor, this motor over here, that side, is your number 1 motor. So we're going to hook that in the number 1 plug. Your right hand motor is number 2. And we're going to hook that up. I run power with these speed controllers. I run power to all of them. I don't pull the plug to not run power to all of them. I haven't had any problems. Some speed controllers they say have problems, but the Plush and these speed controllers have never had any issues with running them all with power instead of removing the actual power wire, which I believe is your center wire. Speed controller. I mean servo. Servo. wire to the inside. Now, if you screw up and you plug one of these wires in backwards, sometimes it's no big deal, but I have actually smoked a board and a speed controller by hooking up backwards. So make sure you have your white wires in the center, or your yellow wires for this particular case. So we should now be able to plug up and not emit smoke and be able to bind our receiver. Got the bind plug in. All right, a little prayer. Here we go. Oh, by the way, you always take off your... Alright, what the hell? Oh, okay. Sorry, first thing I want to do is set my battery so it won't be screaming at us. Alright, the battery is set. Alright, this is my bad board. Fuck's sakes. Alright, before we glue down the board and glue down the receiver, sometimes it's easier to go ahead and bind it now. So I'm going to grab a bind plug, stick it in the bind slot. I've got the motors hooked up. You know, everything's hooked up. Props are off. You always take your props off when you're doing anything like this, period. So we got the bind plug on. We got my radio turned off now. And we're going to go ahead and bind it up. So hopefully it won't smoke. We're going to hook it up and see what happens. So plug in. Alright, I'm blinking for the bind. I'm going to press my little bind button. And it says binding. Let go of the bind button. Alright, so we should be good to go. Radio is now saying it's good to go. So we're going to unplug this. Pull the bind plug back out. And then again, with the props off, we want to do a little test to make sure everything's working. I'm going to go ahead and arm it. Okay, it's armed fine. We want to check, make sure the self level is off right now. I'm going to trigger it on. Comes on. My battery voltage is good. Some of my trim tabs are a little off, according to this. I think it's a good idea to go ahead and just check the rotation of the motor. So I'm going to bind it. Now your right front motor here, you want it to spin this way, clockwise. So we're going to gas it, and it's not spinning that. It's going the opposite way. So to fix that, you take two of the wires and switch them. And then when you switch it, it should spin that way. So it's going in this clockwise. All right, your right front motor, crap out of the way, is supposed to spin counterclockwise. So we're going to gas it. Hey, guess what? It's not. So we're going to switch two of those wires. I know the rear one's going to be perfect because I couldn't have had that bad of luck. So it's going counterclockwise on this side. So we're going to pretend like this motor's on the rear of the Tricopter, even though it's not quite there yet. We want this motor to spin clockwise also, like the front left motor. So we're going to gas it. Hey, look at that. Got 1 out of 3 right. So that's spinning clockwise. So clockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. We'll set up the ACC calibration in a little while, but we're going to go ahead and disarm this little bad boy, unconnect it, disconnect it, whatever you call it, and start getting a little bit of something to our chaos here. So I need a couple of these little pads. Now the pads are absolutely wonderful. I used to use Velcro, and that was hit and miss. Sometimes it worked perfect, sometimes it wouldn't work perfectly. But these little pads I got here are phenomenal. So you just cut them in half. So it gives you 4 of these little bad boys. Peel and stick. You got one shot of this, by the way. If you screw it up, they don't particularly like to come off. So I put one at an angle there. Sorry. And wish to God I didn't bite my fingernails. It'd be a lot easier. We put one going down this way. One going down this side, and one at the bottom. Sorry, it's a little screwy, but no big deal. That way you need 2 pads for each board, or a pair of them, whatever you call it. So since we marked out our place where the actual opening is, we pretty much know where it's going to have to sit. So we're going to take, center it up nice in between our little drawings, and kind of set it in there. So it ain't coming out. We're going to hot glue this little sucker down. I'm going to wind the wire up a little bit so it's a little bit neater and looks a little bit cooler one way or the other. Here we're going to wind it. Throw a little hot glue in those beautiful things that we sanded off. Hot glue that sucker down. You can also two-face. Whoa, that's a little bit too close to the buttons. Crap. There we go. Okay. Hopefully we can keep the buttons clear. That should work. A little quick tip there, make sure you don't hot glue your receiver so close you can't hit your little buttons. So that looks nice, it looks clean. We're ready to put this thing, assemble it all back together again and go through the calibration, put the props on, get the soldering out of the way here. Wire's going to run down. So it's time to do this. Now, as you can see here, obviously I can't bring my servo for servo wire. It will not go, so I'm going to have to add a small extension to that. So you might want to put that on your list for the T Copter. Happen to have one sitting right here, so we're going to throw an extension on there, and that's the only thing you're going to need extension for. And that'll give me extension. I was going to run that out the side. I'm going to have to kind of figure out how my wiring's going. I'm going to actually slide this this in last. I'm going to take my this is a bit of a cluster doing this. It's getting everything to kind of fit. So I got my plate. I'm going to carefully try to run my wires in such a way that everything will fit. Here's another dope. Drop my stupid boom. Alright, here's one little problem. Just kind of seeing it right now, is this is not going to go. So we just take and run the wire out a little. We're going to move our little ferrite adapter. A lot of people ask, can you take these off? Yeah, sure, you can take them off. I'm sure the people who built this speed controller didn't know what they were talking about by putting them on there. So obviously, you know, if you know more than they did, take it off. I've honestly never done it, and I'm just being facetious, but you probably could take it off. It might not affect it at all, but it's a pain in the butt to take off, and I just leave them on there, and they go up under the cover. You're not going to see them anyway. So we just extended that a little bit longer, so it's out of the way now. So we're going to take all this wire, and we're just going to kind of bundle it up and lay it here. It's all going to be covered up. As long as it's less than a ½ inch thick, we're good to go. And that looks like it's going to work. That's going down there. This is out of here. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I'll figure it out and edit it out of the video so it doesn't look like I'm a total idiot. We're going to take our cover, put it on, line up the holes, push all the wire out of the way, and I'll just usually start one of the screws to hold it all together. And use a screwdriver. Let's go old school here. And find another screw somewhere on the table. Put that in there. So you're kind of getting the general idea here. Now we use socket screws that are supposed to have washers that are unfortunately have disappeared from our washers here. Crap sakes, where are they at? Let's grab some more washers. Try not to lose your washers, guys. It's a very important thing to have. So we use these cap screws in the front because we can torque these arms down a little bit better than using the Phillips head screws, and that's worked out real well. There's also, you're going to notice, there's also holes in the front right here, and those holes are, you can use a little tiny dowel, or I use zip ties, and I just run a 1/8 inch zip tie around it, and that locks the arms from being able to go back. But in the event of a crash, the zip ties will pop loose, and you hopefully will not break your arm, and everything will be all shiny and golden. So that's what those holes are there for, in case you're wondering. Of course, it is important that we put the arm on the correct way. And y'all have to forgive my messy table here, but man, you should have seen it like 3 days ago. It was ugly. So we're going to get that on there and tightened up with the handy hex key that is supposed to be on the table here, but it's not. So I'll be right back. I'm going to get me a hex key. I'm going to tighten that up, and then we'll get the boom on there, and we'll get this thing set up and do a little bit of flying with it. Alright guys, we got it all buttoned up. Again, I don't want to emphasize this too much, but actually I do want to emphasize too much. If you will not zip tie this section right here, you will save your motor. In a front end collision, everything's going to kind of pop loose. These zip ties will let go. These will pull out. You'll have a good motor and everything. You'll just pop it back in, put 2 zip ties back on, you're back in business again. The other zip ties, again, same function on that. On the rear, we just kind of bundle the wires together coming back. You want to leave a little slack in here for your tilt. Might not hurt to have a little more than that, but I don't think it'd be a problem. You don't usually tilt more than that. I'm using the HS82 Metal Gear servo. I find it's an old analog servo. It's nothing, you know, special about it, except they just seem to hold up to a lot of abuse. Not saying you're not going to destroy it, but it's possible. I'm using the Sunnysky 22, 12, 1400 kV motors using 8.4 props. These are direct drive props. They are very inefficient. They are cheap. They are not nearly as good as using a slow fly propeller, but on 4-cell packs, if you use a plastic slow fly, you know, your old paddle type looking prop, not carbon reinforced, but just a standard slow fly plastic prop, it will not work. If you run it on 3-cell, you'll actually get more lift than you get out of these, and they'll handle 3-cell fine. But once you go to 4-cell, that's out of the question. You can use the carbon reinforced slow fly prop with this setup, but you will be pulling a boat load of amps. It will be a rocket ship that will be frightening scary as far as acceleration, and you won't blow your speed controllers or blow your motors, but you will definitely stress the crap out of them. It's literally the most power you'll be able to put on these motors and these speed controllers is using the carbon reinforced 8x 4.5 props. So you know, we're also talking about 1200 watts if you do that. We're talking to, you know, on 14 or 16 volts at 60-70 amps. It's a lot. So I don't recommend it unless you can control yourself or you like really pushing the edge. And I like pushing the edge, but I ain't pushing it that far. Plus the carbon reinforced props are $1.50 a piece. So when I crash, you know, I'm not out nearly as much as you know, with these props as I would be. These make a lot of noise, but the good things about these is they handle the wind wonderfully. The wind doesn't affect these props like they do the slow fly props. And I fly at the beach a lot, and I fly in windy situations. And for some reason, this prop combination, it just works for me on 4-cell. On 3-cell, I'd probably prefer to use the paddle props because it gives a little bit more power. That's all I'm going to say on the props. These are the direct drive GWS style props. They're cheap, you know. I'm going to be selling them. I'm going to have them. They won't have the ugly yellow on it, but I'm going to sell them pre-drilled and pre-balanced, just in case people are too lazy to do it themselves. I do highly recommend you buy a balancer and a you know, drill press or a drill, whatever you want to do. You can drill them out yourself and save the money. A couple other things. On a Spectrum transmitter, you will need, I'm going to try to save you some broken props already here. You will need to reverse the aileron and the elevator on a Spectrum radio for this board the way it's set up. I'm going to give you the setup. I'm actually going to cut and paste the setup I did in my Tricopter to show you how we set up the board. To give you an idea, if you guys want to fly kind of like I do, which is kind of on the edge of control here, and doing lots of flips and stuff like that, you're going to need to use a lot of expo. I run around 110 to 120 on the scale stick. and then I run, that's a crappy board. I think I got it used from somebody else. I hope it works. So I'll quit saying 120, 115 to 120s, 110 to 120, that idea for the scale stick on the aileron and elevator, and I run my rudder between 85 and 90 on the scale stick. Everything else in the board is pretty much stock. Damn it, I did it again. So with that setting, I run 70% expo on the aileron and elevator and about 30% on the rudder. Now, if you go with the auto level and you go with a DX8 or any radio that you can program, I know this is getting a little technical and I'm really suck at technical, but you can set it up so when you flip your gear switch to turn off the auto level, that it basically turns the expo down to 20% or 30%. And that's kind of what I'm running when I have this. When I have the auto level on, which is rare, but when I do, I have it set on my radio, and I'm not going to show you how to program that because I barely know how to do it myself. But it's set up so that when you, well, hell, I'll show you real quick. Probably won't be able to read it because the GoPro doesn't really do a great job of being able to read up close. But when we go to, what the hell are we doing here? We're talking about servo setup. Oops. And we're going to, never mind, scratch that. We're going to DR and Expo. So right now you see I've got DR, I got Expo 40% with the auto level on. When I flip it, the auto level off, the Expo goes to 70%. So you kind of get the idea there. I'm having it so it has two different Expos, and that makes it so it makes the auto level more responsive. So when you fly it off of, when auto level is on, you have less expo, so it makes the auto level more responsive so you can fly faster forward and backwards and stuff like that. It just feels a bit more comfortable. So again, we got 70% aileron, 70% elevator with the auto level off, 35 or so percent, 35% on the expo on the rudder with the aileron with the self level on or off. I hope you guys are really confused because I'm actually a little bit confused right now. But either way, I think we're set. We're going to go take it out and just give it a quick test flight. I will be shooting some videos at the beach this week, and trying to get some nice demo videos of it flying FPV. This thing's really nice for FPV. It's really nice for just doing video photography because you can really see which way the tail's running on it, and it's just really nice for pointing the camera. This long tail movement in the design of this copter makes it really nice for visually seeing from the ground which way it's pointed, and also for FPV it gives you absolute clear line of sight, so you don't have the props in the picture at all. So the camera goes up here when I fly FPV, and I put the battery in the back to balance out the weight. So I'm going to go outside and fly it a little bit, and then hopefully next week I'll have some videos up on the website showing this thing in action at the beach, doing flips, rolls, and some FPV work, and some crashing, some hitting other things, hopefully a lot of carnage. I know the weather's supposed to be crappy for our little trip, but we'll see what happens. So we're going to do some flying. Alright, hope this all works. So we're going to plug in. First thing we're going to go to is your show motor layout, and that's going to show as a T Copter, which we don't want. So we're going to go to load motor layout, hit enter, and you scroll down to Tricopter. You're going to use this for Tricopter or T Copter, doesn't matter. So we're going to hit enter. Are you sure? Yes. You can go through all this, or you just hit back. We're good. You can show motor layout, and wrong way. Still wrong way. Show motor layout, Tricopter. Also, if you'll notice in the show motor layout, it'll have little arrows pointing to which way you're actually supposed to have rotation of the prop. So your front left one spins what we call clockwise, like a clock would go around. Your front right one spins counterclockwise, and then the rear one spins clockwise. A lot of people ask, can you run all clockwise or all counterclockwise? Yes, you can. these particular boards will make the copter tilt a little bit, but it's very flyable. The only time it gets kind of hinky and weird is like when you're flying in reverse at a high speed. Sometimes it'll start yawing itself out. So if you can get the correct counter-rotating and rotating props, by all means do. Alright, so next we're going to go to, I don't know, we'll go to mixer editor. Here's the other one that's going to get you in trouble possibly. Let me make sure I'm still in focus. Looks like I am. Okay, if you use a digital servo, you'll have to most likely go to the channel 4, which is channel 2, 3, 4, and there's a, is that 5? Crap, hold on. Mixer editor 4. Alright, there's a channel called rudder down here. It'll factory be plus 100, which I think works fine for analog servos, but if you're going to a digital servo, you'll drop down to that 100, press change, and then go to negative 100. So the other thing to know if it's working right or not working right is when you carefully, once you get this all put together, you put your tricopter on the ground and you start throttling it up and you kind of give it a little yaw here and there and it starts spinning like a friggin' top. You need to reverse 100, either plus 100 or negative 100. Go opposite of what it is. So if it's spinning like a top and you're at plus 100, go to negative 100, and that should usually clear you up. So I'm pretty sure that I'm correct on this, that my standard analog servo is positive 100. The other thing you want to look at is rates. If you're using an analog servo, a non-digital servo, you want to keep the rates on low down here, right here. And to change that, you just hit the change and it'll hit it to high, hit it back to low. Either way, if you're running a digital servo, you want to run that one on high. So we got our mixer editor done. We're going to scroll up to ACC calibration. I'm going to do this. I'm not on a flat board because I'm trying to show you how this works, but let's pretend like we're on a good flat surface. You'd press enter and you'd read that and you say, okay, who cares? Continue, and let's do a 5-second countdown. It's going to calibrate your ACC. That's going to be your auto level. So if you do this on a crooked table, the first time you put auto level, it's going to go whichever way it was crooked. Continue, calibration succeeded. Remind me to fix that before we fly. So continue. We're going to go up to sensor test, don't care. Camera stab settings, that's on this particular software. Self-level settings. Alright, factory self-level settings is 100 on top. That's going to make it, when you go, when you click the self-level or you move the stick, it's going to snap back really, really fast to self-level, which is fine when you're first learning, but if you want to smooth that up a little bit and you want to make it come back kind of slower, you bring this P gain down to about 50 or 45 or something like that, and that way it'll come back to level, but just a little bit slower and more majestically if you care about that. Everything else I leave pretty much alone. Now, once you set this up and you get it self-level, and you go and take off, you start flying, you click self-level on, it starts going forward a little bit. We're saying, oh man, it's going forward just a little bit. So this is where you fix this. You come down to these trims down here, and one is roll, which is side to side, and then pitch is forward and backwards. So unfortunately our copter is going forward a little bit. So we're going to go to pitch, and honestly you just go one way and try it out. So it's going forward just a little bit, so I'm going to go, believe it or not, 30 forward. I'm going to hit done, back out of this, and hold on one second, I'm going to talk to my wife. Okay, I'm back. So so we set it on plus 30, and I lift it off, and the sucker's going even more forward. It's going faster forward. Like, crap, that's wrong. So we're going to go back, scroll back down to AC, trim pitch, and then we're going to go to negative 30 and see if that's better. If that's better, great. Then maybe it needs a little bit more, we'll go to negative 40. Maybe it needs a little bit more, we'll go to 50. Whatever it takes. You don't want to put little tiny numbers in here because for some reason it wants big numbers. So we're going to clear that out. And done. Done. Back. Miscellaneous settings. What's on here? Alright, we got you alarm for the voltage board. That's the one thing you're going to set on this thing. Everything else I pretty much ignore except servo filter. Personally, I put servo filter at 70, which I'm going to do now. And that does is kind of makes the servo a little slower, just a minute bit. It kind of just puts a little buffer in there, makes it a little bit smoother. You might not need it, especially with a digital servo. My voltage, I'm running 4-cell packs. So I'm going to run at 13.8 volts. So I'm going to go to 138. This is for 4-cell batteries. If you do this on 3-cell batteries, it'll beep and squall at you. On 3-cell batteries, I'd probably run it around 9.9 volts, and that's under a load. So, you know, that gives you a little bit of a buffer, gives you, 20-30 seconds to get back down and land and all that kind of stuff. So we're done on that. Back. Stick scaling. Okay, guys, this is where you do the flips. If you want to do a ton of flips and just rock and roll, if you've been flying for a while, I run mine around 120, but that's a 1-foot flip, and that's really scary, and you have to use a lot of expo. So, oh crap. So you know, the 30 scaling is on it, you can fly it and everything, and I would just slowly increase up your roll, pitch, and your yaw. The yaw I run personally for my flying videos, I run them at 90 on rudder, and then on the roll and the pitch, I run those around 120. So basically just work up to those numbers if you want to. If not, just want to fly around and have a good time, just cruise around, leave them down low. You might find you want a little more yaw, so you take that number from 50 to 60 to 70, whatever feels good for your yaw, and pitch and everything like that. With a stock 30 and 30 and 50, you'll need to be about 100 foot up to do a flip. If you go to about 80, you'll have to be about 35 or 40 feet up to do a flip comfortably. I'm talking about having a little bit of room at the bottom to get through the flip. You hit about 100, you're good about 20 feet doing a flip. And these are all things that you need to take it up high and test it out, and you got to be off of auto level to do flips, guys. I don't care. I've done it. You know, I've almost hit myself because I forgot to flip it off auto level. But to do flips and rolls and stuff like that, you have to have it off auto level. So enough of that. So that was stick scaling and mode setting. Okay, we have self level. Right now it's on stick. You don't want it on stick. You want to have it on auxiliary, and that will make it so when you flip your gear switch in your radio, you'll have auto level. And then when you flip it off, you will not have auto level. Link, roll, and pitch, leave that alone. Auto disarm, definitely. I have no clue about CPPM. Not really versed on that stuff. Receiver test, who cares unless you have a problem. PI editor, this is about how much gain, how quick and how hard your speed controllers try to get you back to whatever it's trying to get you to. Honestly, I run it pretty much on stock 50, 100, 25 on everything except maybe yaw. I might bump that up a little bit. So to get to yaw, you'd hit it 1-2 times to rudder, which is yaw, and I usually run around 65 or 70 on these particular servos. Now, some servos, not a big deal. Try not to get too crazy in this thing. A lot of people really go nuts with this stuff, but personally, myself, I don't care. As long as it flies good, I'm not going to go 23 on my gains and limits to make it just a little bit better. It just really doesn't matter. So once we get all that done, we're going to get back to safe. Now we got to calibrate the speed controls. Now if I hook up, I don't know if you'll notice, when I hook this up, I should, if I made it long enough, have my voltage should come up on the board. Yep, 16.3 volts. Again, this is a 4-cell pack. So now we're going to calibrate the speed controllers. This is very important. You want to make sure you do this, but you want to make sure you have the props off the motors. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through showing you what happens on the board when you do this. You'll have the throttle at full throttle, your radio turned on, no props again, and you have about 1 second to get your battery plugged up and get your fingers on this 1 and 4 button, okay? This one and this one. You have to press them simultaneously. If you screw up and you don't get there in time, it won't work, but here's what it sounds like. Alright, I missed it. I didn't make it in time. So just unplug it, do it again. Alright, throttle bypass beeped. Pull your throttle from full up to full down. Let go. Alright guys, let's give her a shot. Auto level on. Never fly over your head, by the way. Auto level off. She's smooth. I meant to do that. Trees. All right, I'm liking this. Alright, I always do that just to show how the motors break off completely on purpose. So what do we got here? We got battery came loose, we got a motor came off, a broken prop, and broken prop. So that concludes our test, and you notice a breakaway. Worked. So everything broke away like it's supposed to break away, just like I planned to when I purposely wrecked this T Copter. No other damage I can see. Got 2 zip ties and 3 props. So that wreck cost us less than $5. And that concludes this test for the day. I got to get this thing uploaded and get back to work. So hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and also watch the ads. I get 10 cents per click on that. And of course, please buy this T Copter because I need the money. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Sorry, I meant buy this T Copter frame because, again, I need the money. Thanks. That didn't work out.